WWE versus AEW is set to continue as NXT has a premium live event scheduled for the same day as Ring of Honor's Final Battle pay-per-view in December. Karl, we have an update on his New Japan bookings as he's the never openweight champion, but he's scheduled for a match at Crown Jewel. Raw's 30th anniversary is in January, and what does WWE have planned for the big event? Shinsuke Nakamura was on NXT this week, and could the NXT champion be there to stay on WWE's third brand? Sasha Banks has been advertised for a show on the USA Network hosted by a WWE Hall of Famer. Some sad news about Kevin Nash's family, and The Miz gives an update on his injury concerns. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. So this week saw the return of WWE versus AEW. When isn't it? WWE versus AEW on social media. But of course, we saw the return of NXT versus AEW with Dynamite going head-to-head with NXT on Tuesday night. A bit of a rerun of the Wednesday Night Wars, if that's what you want to call them. But we could see more WWE versus AEW coming in the near future. Certainly, sort of, in terms of properties owned by WWE and properties owned by AEW President Tony Khan, because we've got some updates on the next premium live event for NXT. Of course, Halloween Havoc is this coming Saturday, but December 10th is going to be packed with pro wrestling. This is according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, which of course is their Patreon service. Be sure to check it out and subscribe. A lot of great information and exclusive stories there. And Sean Ross Sapp is reporting that NXT talent has been informed that December 10th is internally slated for an NXT WWE Premium Live event, rumored to be associated with the Deadline trademark that was recently filed. Now, Fightful haven't confirmed that that is the official name, that it could be WWE Deadline or NXT Deadline, but several talent and staff have been made aware to keep that date open. Now, of course, if that date sounds familiar, it should, because that's the same day as Ring of Honor Final Battle. But as of right now, we haven't heard that the two events are going to be running directly against one another. Most likely, it's a situation where Ring of Honor, which of course is scheduled to run in the afternoon, and WWE NXT would be planning to run that night. Now, as of right now, by all accounts, according to reports, the plan is to hold the event from WWE's Performance Center in Florida. It's expected that the event will be announced this coming Saturday at the Halloween Havoc show. And the reason I think this is quite interesting, and it's a story we're leading with here this evening, is because could this be a sign of things to come? Now, we know Ring of Honor most likely is going to get a weekly television deal. Certainly, Tony Khan was hinting at it. The strongest he's hinted at it a lot. The strongest he's hinted at it at all, really, just a couple of days ago. He announced that there would be some positive news when it came to a weekly TV deal, and we would hear something, or the plan was to begin a weekly television Ring of Honor show in 2023. Now, he said there was positive news regarding TV and pay-per-view for Ring of Honor, and the very next day, the Ring of Honor Final Battle pay-per-view was announced on television on Dynamite on Tuesday. So I would feel that actually come December and probably come Final Battle is when we will get this announcement of a television deal for Tony Khan's Ring of Honor, where that will live, where that will go, etc., etc., etc. The interesting thing about this is, could we see, is it indeed possible that, again, depending on where this Ring of Honor show lives, if it's going to be live as well, could we see a situation where maybe Ring of Honor went head-to-head with NXT on Tuesday nights? I know at the moment you've got AEW Dark then, but certainly it doesn't feel like that show's, glued to that time slot or that date. And you never know, that there aren't many days in the week when there aren't pro wrestling anyway. So it could be a situation where we are going to see Ring of Honor maybe on a Tuesday night going head-to-head with NXT. Now, again, that's speculation at this point. But I also think that, and whilst this NXT Deadline Premium Live event probably has been in the works and planned for a long time, I don't think this is counter-programming. I don't think this is a counter-programming situation like they had done in the past. But I think NXT and WWE, frankly, would have actually been really positively encouraged by the results they saw when it came to the ratings yesterday. Because in reality, Yes, they lost again to Dynamite, which NXT should always lose to AEW Dynamite. This is why the Wednesday Night Wars was not a surprise to me, because look at the stars and look at the people and look at the budget that AEW has for that show in comparison to NXT. If you've got a show that has Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes at the time, versus a show that had Adam Cole, Keith Lee, and whoever was on there, and then these stars they had on NXT would then disappear and get called up to the main roster. Of course, AEW should beat that brand any day of the week, and they did. But I think this time around, yes, Dynamite beat them, but Dynamite dropped off a lot. And they started that show really hot as well. They started with over 1 million viewers, and by the time Seg 2 came around, they were up 660,000 viewers. So for whatever reason, nearly 400,000 people had decided they didn't want to watch AEW Dynamite. Now, I don't know if it's because of the opening match of the show. I don't know if it's because they decided that they were going to try out watching NXT because they were watching wrestling on a Tuesday night. And they thought, I'll see what NXT's doing. I know there's going to be main roster stars there. Perhaps it was because of the sports. Obviously, there was NBA and Major League Baseball games there too. So I'm sure that was part of it. But I think WWE, if they're thinking about counter-programming, which we know they love to do, they might look at it and say, well, we didn't win, but we took viewers away from AEW. And that was the original intention always in the Wednesday Night Wars initially. It wasn't necessarily to win. I think obviously that was the one aim, but it was also to take viewers away from Dynamite. And I don't know. I do think that WWE would have looked at that result this week and said, well, we'll see what happens. And again, depending on where Ring of Honor sits, we could see a situation where realistically the developmental brand for WWE, which is NXT, could go head-to-head with what might be the developmental brand for AEW, that being Ring of Honor. Now, it must be said it's not being treated like a developmental brand at the moment, ROH, but I have to wait and see. I feel like more competition is really on the horizon between WWE and AEW, and I think that might have begun this week. Now, let's talk about Karl Anderson, the never openweight champion for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, for a brief moment, following New Japan Pro Wrestling's retweet of Karl Anderson and Luke Gallows' return to WWE, it appeared as though both companies might be to form some kind of working relationship with one another, or at least one that would allow Anderson to fully fulfill his outstanding New Japan dates he might have as the reigning never openweight champion. Then, of course, the Good Brothers this past Monday were announced as part of the match for WWE Crown Jewel, which takes place on the very same day as New Japan Pro Wrestling's Battle Autumn, where it would be impossible for him to do both events because, of course, they're in different countries. Now, Anderson had previously been announced for Battle Autumn to defend his Never Openweight Championship against Hikuleo. Suddenly, a lot was being spoke about as to which show was he going to do, which match was going to be off. Well, adding to the speculation as to exactly what is going on, Anderson went to Twitter this afternoon to tweet out the following message. Quote, "Attention, official statement from the greatest never openweight champion on the fact that New Japan booked me without going through my booking agent Luke Gallows. So with that said, we've got a little problem. Signed, WWE's The OC, Karl Bright Lights Anderson." Now, in an accompanying video, Gallows and Anderson both claimed that New Japan Pro Wrestling had booked Anderson's title defense at Battle Autumn without going through Gallows, leading to Anderson being double booked. Declaring that he and Gallows would show up in New Japan on their own time, Anderson stated that the match with Hikuleo was indeed off. Now, whether Anderson's message was a way to ungracefully exit New Japan or was simply meant to explain his absence from Battle Autumn, leading to a rescheduled match with Hikuleo down the line, is a mystery, of course. Gallows and Anderson were reportedly supposed to be allowed to finish up the New Japan Pro Wrestling commitments through Wrestle Kingdom at the beginning of next year, but it remains to be seen if that will be the case. I think people are looking at this, too much in the wrong direction. He just couldn't do Battle Autumn at this point. It'd been widely reported that in actuality, he's probably going to have the match in October as opposed to have it in November when Crown Jewel is. He wasn't under contract. They weren't ever under contract to New Japan Pro Wrestling. They were verbal commitments. Once they signed, put pen to paper, and they signed on the dotted line, which they have with WWE, they've signed contracts with them. WWE has priority over their bookings. They're going to allow the Good Brothers to fulfill the dates they had agreed to with New Japan, but also at the same time, Crown Jewel is the biggest, most profitable show for a lot of these talents. They will make more money doing these Saudi shows than any other event of the year, certainly more than Anderson will do doing this New Japan Pro Wrestling show. So just reschedule the match. He'll reschedule the match to probably a New Japan Strong taping at some point this month. He'll drop the championship. I still expect both of the Good Brothers to work Wrestle Kingdom in January. It's going to be a really interesting scene to have stars from New Japan, AEW, and WWE work that big Tokyo Dome show. But that's what I expect. I don't really expect it to be that complicated. I think people, as I mentioned, are looking more into it than is necessary with that one. Now, Raw has been around for 30 years in January next year. Man, that does make you feel old, doesn't it? Now, Raw has been the longest running weekly episodic television show in history since the show's first debuted back in January of 1993. Now, those keeping an eye on the calendar will notice that we're just 2 months away from January of next year, which will mark the 30-year anniversary of the Red brand. There are now reportedly plans in place for the big anniversary. Per WrestleVotes on Twitter, which of course very reliable pro wrestling scoops account, WWE has plans in motion for the show in January. Per the tweet, there were actually plans under the old regime to air the show live from the Manhattan Center in New York City on the table, though it's not known if that is still the case now. They tweeted, quote, "I'm told plans are in motion for the 30th anniversary of Raw show coming up in January. Prior to the new leadership taking over, having the show from the Manhattan Center again in New York was on the table. I'm unaware if that's the case still." Now, of course, WWE celebrated Raw 1000 back in 2012, which marked the beginning of the 3-hour era of Monday Night Raw, which turned 10 years old back in July, of course. I remember the last anniversary show, which was Raw 25. That's when they had the simulcast, when they had part of the show was from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. The other half was from the Manhattan Center in New York City. It was awful, if I recall correctly. It wasn't a good show. The people, I think the real diehard fans went to the Manhattan Center and they dressed it up great. The set design was awesome. It looked exactly like Raw from the first episode back in 93. The issue is that they barely had anything going on there. They had the DX anniversary. They had, I think it was Bray Wyatt versus Matt Hardy. And then because the crowd was booing, because most of the action was happening in the Barclays Center, they just had to send 205 Live people up there. So for these huge tickets that they paid so much money to buy these tickets, they were watching 205 Live. It was a complete shambles. Oh, and you had an Undertaker promo. That was about it. So I'd love for them to do it from the Manhattan Center and actually do a full show from there. And that does seem something a bit more daring and a bit more creative over finances. And I wouldn't rule out WWE doing it. I think Triple H obviously is a wrestling historian. He'd enjoy that. Whether or not WWE decide to do it, we'll have to wait and see there. Shinsuke Nakamura, of course, former NXT champion Shinsuke Nakamura, made his return to NXT this past week. Now, he made his first television appearance since late August, winning a match against Channing Stacks Lorenzo, and it won't be the only time fans should expect to see Nakamura in NXT in the weeks to come. According to a report via PW Insider, Nakamura is currently scheduled to make additional appearances on the developmental brand, though it is unclear if that is set to be a permanent position moving forward or if he'll make a limited number of appearances before heading back to SmackDown. Of course, Nakamura is a former 2-time NXT champion and has captured quite a lot of gold on the main roster as well. Most recently, Nakamura held the Intercontinental Championship for just under 5 months before dropping the championship to Sami Zayn on an episode of SmackDown this past February. Now, it remains to be seen exactly what is the purpose of Nakamura's stint in NXT, but it may not be surprising to see him challenge current NXT champion Bron Breakker at some point before potentially returning to main roster action. It must be said, I like this idea. This is something that Triple H really wanted to do when he was the executive producer of NXT, particularly when they were going head-to-head with AEW Dynamite. He would say to Vince McMahon and the executive directors of Raw SmackDown at the time, Eric Bischoff, Paul Heyman, Bruce Pritchard, whoever, he would say to them, look, you're not doing anything with this person. They're not even in any storylines. They're just there on television. Give me them for not even a massive amount of time, 6 weeks, 4 weeks. Give me them for just a small period of time. They can work a program with whoever. They can get that talent over. They can win. They're not going to lose it or anything like that, but they can face this person. They can win. They can go back to the main roster. Suddenly they've been away for a while, a return. They've got a new gimmick or they're trying something. They're tweaking something. That can be a lot of fun. Do that. And it would appear that's what they're doing right now. Triple H is saying, Shinsuke Nakamura, let me see. what's going on WWE television right now? Well, I don't really have him factored in. So instead of what used to happen in the past, of when someone isn't factored in, they're just taken to TV anyway. Maybe they have a match here or there, but they don't have a storyline. They don't have a program. What I'll do, I'll send you to NXT. And it's not a demotion. It's just a case of we don't have anything for you right now. Obviously, you're still a big talent. Obviously, you've got history of the brand. Obviously, you're a draw. We still want to pop a rating on Tuesday nights for this show. Go there. Work with this talent, maybe tweak your gimmick, have some time away, and then you can come back. So I think that's a really smart decision. And what's Nakamura doing on SmackDown at the moment? Nothing. It could be far more effective on NXT and then come back. So I think that's really exciting. I really do. Sasha Banks, yes, a name that has been continued to be rumored to return to WWE. Well, Sasha Banks is going to be on the USA Network soon. Just not on Monday Night Raw. USA Network has released the first look at a new series called Barmageddon, hosted by WWE Hall of Famer Nikki Bella, along with Carson Daly and Blake Shelton. And in the preview, it's revealed that Sasha Banks will be one of the contestants on the first season. Now, the series, which takes place in Shelton's bar, Ollie Road in Nashville, Tennessee, will pit celebrities as well as fans against one another in a series of elaborate games, and will also feature live musical performances. In addition to Banks, performers and contestants include Brie Bella, Gwen Stefani, Sheryl Crow, Trace Adkins, Jay Farrow, and many more. Barmageddon is scheduled to premiere on December 5th. Now, it must be said, don't know when this was recorded, don't know when it was filmed. It would feel like it's largely independent of WWE as well. It'll be interesting to see if she's promoted as Sasha Banks or Mercedes Varnado. We'll have to wait and see with that, but certainly it's interesting and it will get people talking nevertheless. Now, this is really, really sad stuff here, folks. Really sad and tragic news. And it really, once I saw this on social media today, my heart just sank. It was a real gut punch. Now, WWE Hall of Famer Kevin Nash's son, Tristan Nash, has sadly passed away at the age of just 26 years old. The Nash family has confirmed. Now, the announcement was posted to Twitter by Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp on behalf of the Nash family, and the statement reads as follows, quote, "On behalf of Kevin and Tamara Nash, I have to unfortunately report that their son, Tristan Nash, has tragically passed away at the age of 26. Tristan recently started working on Kevin's new podcast, and the two enjoyed their time together. The Nash family asks if you could please respect their privacy during this time." Now, obviously, we send our condolences to Kevin, Tamara, the entire Nash family during this time. It's just, no parent should ever have to bury their child or outlive their child. It's an incredibly sad story. I'm a huge fan of the Kevin Nash Click This podcast. I'm a huge fan of Kevin Nash. I've heard him talk about his son. If you've ever seen an interview of Kevin Nash, he will always reference his son and the decisions he made in life for his son, i.e. going to somewhere like WCW and, you know, in his mid-20s. It's just such sad news, and thoughts and prayers and condolences really truly go out to the Nash family. Just horrible story. Finally, The Miz has been dealing with an injury for the last several weeks, a minor one. Now, The Miz was on Eckler's Edge, and he said, "I just got back from Monday Night Raw. I didn't have to have a match, but anytime you have a match, your entire body is sore. When I'm done, I don't feel it, and the next day I'm like, where is this coming from? I have a burster sac that I bursted and keeps blowing up. Literally, it just keeps coming back. I messed up my shoulder for a little bit, but you know, you're trying to work out and trying to work through it and try to make sure you maintain your body and physicality." Now, despite the injury, Miz mentioned in the same interview that he's set to compete in the Squared Circle later this week in his native Ohio. He said, quote, "Just this week I have to go to SmackDown. I'm going on Friday just to do the dark main event to give them something a little more for the live crowd." Of course, he's in the storyline at the moment with Dexter Lumis, and it would appear that they're going to be building to some kind of big match coming up in the future as well. So there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. Let me know your thoughts, as always, on today's WWE news stories, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.